Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Echo, and I'm a senior student here at the Village Zendo. Yeah, here, wherever we are, right? Because I'm clearly not there today, but spent a lot of time with our online Zendo. Today I'm in Chautauqua, New York, which is where I spend the summers, and it's west, quite far west in New York
Yeah.
State. And can you hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And we're having our first, what I think of as a soft, cool day, kind of fall weather, even if it's still only August. Uh, but it's just a beautiful, beautiful time of year. And there's a lot going on in the world. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about sort of finding some calm in the chaos. And I'm always of two minds about giving Dharma talks. The first is, do I really have anything to say, or should we just sit? And then I remember what Ikkyo Roshi taught me, which is that my work is my practice, and that really Zen is everywhere. So I wanted to share both from my life tonight and both my Zen practice as well as for my work, and see if I can support it anyway, helping find some calm in the chaos. So to start, there's a verse that is actually the verse that led me to Zen. It's from the Hua Hu Xing, The Unknown Teachings of Lao Tzu by Brian Walker. So I'm going to read it twice because I think it's the key to how I began to find some calm in the chaos around me, and hopefully it'll support you as well. Here's the verse. Do you imagine the universe is agitated? Go into the desert at night and look out at the stars. This practice should answer the question. By connecting her mind with a subtle origin, she calms it. Once calmed, it naturally expands, and ultimately her mind becomes as vast and as immeasurable as the night sky. Do you imagine the universe is agitated? Go into the desert at night and look out at the stars. This practice should answer the question. By connecting her mind with a subtle origin, she calms it. Once calmed, it naturally expands, and ultimately her mind becomes as vast and immeasurable as the night sky. And when I first read that, I just fell into it. And it is the verse that I come back to, even just the first line. Do you imagine that the universe is agitated? Whenever I feel myself agitated, actually, whenever it's a good day and I'm able to feel myself being agitated, I can just come back to that because you know nobody likes to be in chaos. Most of us can manage it, but especially we can manage it if we believe it's temporary. And we tell ourselves, just get through this, then things will calm down. I tell myself that a lot these days. But in our sort of this modern age that we're in these particular times, we have sort of this age of, I'm going to call it over information. We have all the disruptions that go on in our lives, all the turbulence politically and geopolitically. It's become increasingly clear that the calm, as I used to know it, may never return. But there's a secret, and here it is. To find calm in the chaos, we have to stop expecting the chaos to stop. To find calm in the chaos, we have to stop expecting the chaos to stop because it won't. What we call chaos is the nature of the universe itself. It's my human mind that craves certainty, that wants that to be different. And I'm not in control of that. And as I grasp for calm in the midst of everything going on around me, it's hard, if not impossible, to find. And I had to learn how to be calm in the face of all of that. And I look to Zen a lot for support with this and for training with this. And there's this well-known old story. This is from Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, but it's an old Zen parable about a farmer whose horse ran away. And the neighbors cried, "Oh, how terrible." And the farmer said, "Well, we'll see." And the next day, the horse came back and brought with it some wild horses. And the neighbors said, "Oh, how wonderful." And the farmer said, "Well, we'll see." And after that, soldiers came to the village to conscript young men into the army. But because of his, oh, sorry, I skipped a verse. The farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses and he broke his leg. And the neighbor said, "How terrible," again. And the farmer said, "We'll see." And then the soldiers came and they tried to conscript young men into the army. But because of his broken leg, the son was spared. Right? So it wasn't so terrible. It was just, we'll see. And so this story reminds us we can't know outcomes. We certainly can't control them. What looks like chaos or misfortune, it's just might turn out to be grace. But in any case, we cannot control it. So one of the practices that I've found is just to take a moment and notice my shoulders. And then often drop my shoulders. Did you even know they were tense? I once lived with my shoulder sort of permanently attached to my ears until I went to, the pain got so bad that I had to pay attention. And I went to see a physical therapist, and she laid her hands on my shoulders to do her work. And she said, "Oh, they've calcified." Because they were so tight that it felt like bone. Maybe not quite like bone, but they were quite tight. But holding my shoulders and my neck tight is just one of my physical responses to trying to control chaos and everything that was swirling around me. And it was a pretty good metaphor for my life at that time. And I actually kind of liked that chaos in some ways. There's a lot of adrenaline associated with it. And there was a lot of sort of always facing problems that I could solve and figuring out ways to solve them. And that actually felt pretty good because I was pretty good at solving those problems. But it had a cost to it, right? You can't just you can't be in the chaos and sort of fight against it and try to solve it. And over the years, I tried cortisone, I tried other medications, I tried physical adjustments, and all those things sort of soothed the symptoms that I had temporarily, but they never really solved the problem, of course. And eventually I sought out a treatment, not a treatment, but calm, and sort of a place of calm steadiness from which I could act. And I found that through my Zen practice. And I want to be clear that it's to act, that being calm is not being passive. It's not just sitting back and letting the world go by. But you can find a place to be and to act from that is centered. And then I had to learn how to return there once I found it. So just to share a little bit of my story, I lived in and led in an organization. It was a hypergrowth company. And then for the past several decades, I've worked with leaders in hypergrowth and in crisis. And given our current macro environment, I thought, again, some of what I had learned from that part of my life might be useful. But these things that I learned, I had the practice of my work, my consulting, but I learned them because of my Zen practice, because I learned to pay attention. I knew that I was able to be centered and calm, and it was helping others find their way to that place that led me to these things. So the most important thing is to recognize that in the sort of a fast-moving, ever-changing environment like we have today, calm doesn't simply appear, right? You have to create space for it. And that's true whether you are showing up at a Zendo to meditate, which is creating space, or you are sitting down at a desk or on a Zoom call. you have to create space for it. And some ways to do that are first just to let go of this false sense of control that we have, because all that we truly control are our own actions. And I'll say mostly control because many of my actions come from subconscious. I don't even think about them. And those are things, do I sit zazen today or not? Do I find my breath when I'm agitated or I feel agitation around me? Do I consider my response or do I just respond? And that's really what we can do. And this can be really hard because there's a lot of ambiguity created by chaos, and that can be hard for us to exist with or to embrace. And I started thinking about an example for this, and I thought about gardening because I have a little tiny bit of plant life behind me. Maybe you can see, which is all I can have here in this particular setup. But I plant seeds and I water them, and I put them in what I think is a good environment for them. But I really, I can't control the sun or the pests that even show up inside. All I can really control is showing up every day to tend these plants. And some summers when we're here, these plants do really well. And other times they just wilt. And, my act of watering becomes a practice, not the harvest, because I can't always count on the harvest, but I can be present for my watering. It's practice. I don't always get it right. Right. Sometimes I overwater, sometimes I underwater, but I learn and then I practice again. New plants next year. I also learned something about decision making. I think in this environment, we are rewarded for making decisions because there's no shortage of them that need to be made. And I learned not to be so quick to make a decision. We don't have to make, sometimes we make decisions we don't have to make. So just to ask ourselves in this chaos around me, I have less information and less confidence maybe than I had in the past. And it makes the decisions harder, and that can be stressful. So just to ask myself, do I really need to make this decision? And if I do, to make it in a way that I'm going to call is directionally correct, not to worry about being perfect. Because in chaos, in volatility, we rarely have enough information to be right, but often we can be directionally correct. It's like when you want to make a skillful action, right? In a Zen sense, skillful doesn't have to mean perfect and completely well thought out and all the information, right? You know what to do, and you know that it's going to be in the right direction. It's kind of like sitting on a cushion for me. It's a little bit different each time, and I have to resist a bias for action when I'm sitting on the cushion, right? I just have to sit and let my most skillful choice be to wait and let my body and mind settle down. I think the third thing is to give myself small certainties. We don't have much certainty in outcomes, as I said, but we can find certainties in process. And this relates directly back to our Zen practice, right? So the process of routines, the process of why do we ring the bells when we do? Why do we sit the way that we sit? Well, how do I light the candle on the altar? How do I hold the incense? That process, that routine that we get into when we go to in a session, that creates some space in us to let go and bring some calm. And I think the most important thing that I've learned is just grounding myself in practice. I have endless distraction around me. I suspect you do too. And grounding myself in practice is really about making time, making time for the calm to appear. I love this. I'm going to have to read this. There's from Yeats. It says, "We can make our minds so like still water that beings gather around us that they may see their own images, and so live for a moment with a clearer, perhaps even fiercer life because of our quiet." So that's that is the sort of thing, knowing that it's good for me, but it's also good for the people around me, that can bring me to recommitting to my practice over and over again. Um, Finding some space for the calm. Um, there's a story I heard recently about an Australian pilot who was flying this giant plane out of Singapore, big Airbus or something with lots of passengers. And apparently there are 14 systems on a plane that keep it flying. About 2 minutes after they took off, um, part of a propeller came off, put a hole in the wing, and took out the wing and that engine. Another engine failed because of some problem. Anyway, 12 of the 14 systems that keep the plane flying went out, and he was left with two. Now, he's a pilot sitting in a big cockpit. You can imagine there was lots of blaring sound and lights, and everybody's looking to him to know what to do next. And he did apparently a pretty amazing thing. He closed his eyes instead of reacting to everything going on around him. And he thought, what does it really take to fly this plane? Oh, I used to fly Cessnas, which are very simple. How would I fly this if it were a Cessna? And he landed the plane, and everybody lived and walked away. But because he took a moment to get calm and centered and react to everything around him, that he was able to do that, rather than, I think, what most people would do, which would be to jump in and try to solve all those problems, rather than just getting back into the moment, getting out of his head and back into his body in some ways. There's a Zen story about that too, which is about the cup of tea, right? There was a Zen master who had a professor who came to visit him, and the Zen master started pouring him tea, and he poured until the cup was full, but he kept pouring until it was overflowing. And the professor sort of freaked out and said, "Oh, it's overfull. No more will go in. You have to stop." And Nanyan said, "Like this cup, you were full of your own opinions and speculations. You're full of your mind. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" Right? So the pilot emptied his cup, which was letting go of our need for certainty and creating space for some calm to arise. And I think this Sangha, this Zendo, gives us lots of anchors for practice, right? Like zazen, zazenkai, sesshin, dokusan. But we have to choose to use them. We have to make time for them. And one of my own anchors of practice really is reading, which won't surprise anyone who knows me. But I did this summer. I've had an opportunity to take time to think without as much travel as I normally do, with fewer client calls. So I had time to pay attention to my time. But I picked up a book that's been laying around my house for the last 3 or 4 years, and I read it. And it was actually, I picked up two books, but they were both by the same author, Natalie Goldberg, who I think many of you will know. I see some smiles and nodding heads. So the two books were Three Simple Lines, which is her book on haiku, and The True Secret of Writing, which she says sort of wink, wink, the true secret of writing. But they return me to sort of the clear simplicity of verse, sort of not quite haiku in my case, or haiku-ish, less concerned with with counting syllables, and a little more free. But I wanted to read just a few minutes of a few sentences of what she says about practice. She says, "Practice awakens that force in us, but not without challenge. We have to do it in spite of logic, the quirks of our mind, our heavy opposition. What practice builds in us is true confidence that can't be derived from outward signs of success, fame, money, and beauty. The confidence comes from the fact that you show up over and over again, right? Trusting the practice, trusting the process. When you commit to a practice, one that is possible given your life and maybe even missed a few times you mess up, you stay in the driver's seat. And even the times you don't show up are part of the practice if you pay attention and don't get rigid, right? So trust the process, trust the practice. And I dip in and out of this, and I do more of it. Sometimes I do less of another, but it is always there to help me find the calm again. And writing verse, which I've come to through, I've wanted to do for a long time, but I've come to through reading these books, is really a letting go of perfection. It's just about being there in the moment with what's being written, And it's been a very, very useful practice for me. Because when I sit and I make space for the calm, the verse comes, the calm comes. And it seems to me always that I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to sit. I don't have time to let the calm come through. But I also don't have time not to do it. So I'd ask you, what is your practice? How do you let the calm come through? Right? It's not passive. It's not denial or pretending that all is well. It's active, steady hand that we have on our wheel, even when the conditions are rough. It doesn't remove the chaos. It just helps us stay centered and not being ruled by it. I'd say we don't not have time for this, but it's our birthright. This ability to find the calm and to be calm. This week, I should talk, as I mentioned, there are a lot of speakers that come. And this week, Doris Kearns Goodwin came and spoke to us. It's an amazing season. Thomas Friedman was here last week. Morgan Freeman was here Tuesday. A lot of great speakers. But Doris Kearns Goodwin, who I would say is beloved, spoke. And she said, looking at how past informs the present, we cannot wait for others to lead us. We must take action, considered nonviolent action. And I would say the first and most important action is to find that calm center within ourselves, because without that, it's hard to take the considered action. So I'm going to close with another parable, which is maybe apocryphal, I'm not sure, but it's an old Zen parable. One day, a Zen master said to his assembly, "Before the chaos of the world, how will you stand? Before the chaos of the world, how will you stand?" And a monk stepped forward and said, "What is the way?" The Zen master replied, "When the wild geese scatter, the last one cannot be called back." So chaos will always scatter. It's nature. Life will always fly sort of beyond our grasp. The way is not to call it back, not to try to force those geese into some sort of formation, but just to stand in the stillness of this night sky in the desert. Thank you so much.